All right, let's talk about breakups. I have experienced, I don't know if many is the right word, several breakups, some from long-term relationships, some from very short connections, let's say, and a bunch that are in between. Some where the breakup has been initiated by me, and some where they were initiated by the other person. Mostly by me, I think. If I were to, my ego just put up an image in my mind right there of like a scorecard, and it's like I've left more times than I've been left. I think that's true, and if it is true, it's only just. But I've definitely experienced both. Um, there is we're gonna come upon this subject several times as we go over these reflections, and there are several things you can look at in the subject of breakups and relationships ending, but I wanted to focus on one specific thing today. And it was prompted by a conversation I had last night with a beloved client who is going through a divorce currently. And without giving all the details, the primary complaint is that the husband, soon to be ex-husband, is uh, somewhat ignoring some boundaries that she put in place and is reaching out to her in small ways here and there, but doing so in a way that is very nice. And you may know where I'm going with this, that the problem with that for her is that, amongst other things, it is tapping into the part of her that is kind of wanting to get back together with him, right? The part of her that has hope that things can change and this unhealthy relationship maybe has the potential to become suddenly a healthy relationship, and maybe they'll get back together and everything will work out great. And that is very painful for her because she knows that that is highly unlikely. And so the fact that he is reconnecting with niceness and saying all the right things, albeit in somewhat subtle and small ways, is not helpful. And what I said to her is, unfortunately, I have been him many times. And I think as I reflect on it, actually, I don't think I have experienced any breakup initiated by me or the other person that I was 100% happy with how I handled that. Even the last two, before I got together with Beth, when I was at my most emotionally mature, you could say, before getting with Beth, even in those, there was some things I would do differently. But I've also been him in the sense that I have been extremely unconscious in breakups. So we're talking about this phenomena of where, so speaking for myself, the relationship has ended, maybe relatively recently, but at some point, some contact is made with the ex for some reason or other, and in that contact, I am creating connection, even though we are in the process of the ultimate disconnection. We are ending our relationship, right? But here I am creating connection at this time. And I think it's safe to say that in every instance, that was very unhelpful for every woman that I'm thinking of right now. So why did I do this? Why does this happen? Well, first thing I'll say is, if you've been consuming the ocean, and it's funny I say the word ocean, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but the ocean of narcissist stuff, content online, on YouTube, on Instagram, and everywhere else, you may have come across this term that I have relatively recently, because it's a relatively new term. There are lots of these new terms popping up in the narcissistic abuse recovery realm, called hoovering. Hoovering being when post-breakup, the narc is trying to hoover you, suck you back in to his, almost invariably his, right? His web of darkness and all of that stuff. So speaking for myself, I don't think that's what was happening. And having worked with many relationships, from working with him and with her as clients, I can say that this hoovering business, in other words, the idea that you have actually been in a relationship with a full-blown narcissist who has narcissistic personality disorder, is incredibly slim. However, and I'm just going on a bit of a side rant here, if you've been consuming a lot of that content, of which there is a lot, you may be convinced that there is a 100% chance that your ex is a narcissist, especially if it's a man, I would say. However, I think in reality, the chances of that being true are very slim. I don't know what the number is, but it's way closer to 0 than it is to 100. Way closer. So speaking for myself, I really don't think that's what I was trying to do, to seek control and ruin someone's life and suck the life out of them so that I can get my narcissistic supply and all that. And I've come across very, very, very few instances where I believe that's what was happening. What I think is happening in every instance is extreme unconsciousness. So rather than this deliberate, planned, manipulative, brainwashing, all-powerful narcissist trying to, like, you know, take over your soul or whatever, I think what is almost always the case is a really unconscious, emotionally unintelligent and disconnected from himself man, which is arguably most men in the world at this point, if I'm being honest. And it hurts me to say that. But in my case, I can say that what I think was happening in some instances was honestly a desire for connection. Breakups are extremely painful, usually for both people. And what I see very often, and what I've experienced many times, and maybe you've experienced this too, is breakups can be very messy, and you get into this makeup, breakup kind of cycle. And I think a lot of the time what happens in that is both people needing comfort and connection, human connection, at this time where they are in the process of ending that very thing, at least with one particular person. So I know my first girlfriend, that breakup was messy as hell. I mean, that whole relationship was messy as hell. But there was a lot of post-relationship connection, and some of the most intense physical intimacy, let's say, that we had ever experienced happened after, in theory, we had broken up. And that was over a few months as well. So that's quite an intense example, but I think is the same dynamic of what many people experience. And so suddenly, now that they're breaking up, the yearning for connection is at its fucking highest for both. So one person semi-consciously or unconsciously reaches out and tries to create that connection, albeit not necessarily for like intense hot sex maybe, but just through text or something, right? Just to create, just, it's like this little invitation. Want some connection? And the other person being in the emotionally vulnerable and raw state that they're in, it's very difficult to say no. And but you want to, because you know that you should, and maybe it's you who ended the freaking relationship. But here they are, and they're reaching out, and the tone is nice. It feels safe. It feels so tempting, but you've also got that alarm bell in your head. It's telling you, don't do it. And it creates this inner conflict, right? And so that's one reason. I think it's the simplicity of wanting connection. And if somebody is very unconscious and therefore emotionally selfish, because those two things go hand in hand, they're not thinking about what effect this is having on the other person. They're just acting in their emotional immaturity, seeking connection with the very person that they're supposed to be disconnecting from, right? And again, whether they initiated it or the other person initiated it, this can happen from either direction. Another thing that I think can happen is in the breakup, now that we've broken up, now that we're not together, I actually feel safer now. Relationships are scary. Being that close, being that open and intimate and vulnerable and authentic, hopefully, with somebody is scary. Why? Well, look at the word vulnerability. To be vulnerable literally means to be in harm's way, to be in potential danger, means you could be hurt. That is the definition of the word vulnerable. And yet we need that in relationship. We hear this all the time about vulnerability, the power of vulnerability, and that's legit. I might argue it's more about being authentic rather than vulnerable, but there's no avoiding it. You will be in a vulnerable position. So it's scary. What that means then is when there is sufficient distance and safety in place, whether that's from ways of keeping somebody at arm's bay, avoidance, or whether now we've broken up or we're just like friends now, you can suddenly feel way safer to create connection. And hence why post breakup, some conversations that people have with their exes or becoming ex is the most raw, vulnerable, intense, deep, connected connection they've ever had with them. Why? It's because both of you are safer now, or one of you perhaps feels safer than they ever did because now they're out. And so now here is Johnny unconscious being more genuinely more open, more heart open, more connected than you've ever felt them. However, that doesn't mean that now everything's going to be okay, and that if you re-enter the relationship, you recreate the connection, that that's how it's going to be. Because what you'll probably experience, and this is the makeup breakup cycle that many people have painfully been stuck in, sometimes for years, is that once you do create the connection again, i.e. we're back in the relationship, avoidance kicks in again, because now the person doesn't feel safe, or it's both of you on some level. Side note, the whole anxious avoidant thing, I'm an anxious attached, I attract avoidance, yes. And you know what? Absolutely everybody has both anxiousness and avoidance in their personality that will show up in the right circumstances in any given relationship. So just a side note on that. I think another thing that can happen is, and this is a little bit closer to the narcissist hoovering thing, is validation. And I think that's definitely been true for me. It's not that I want to cause this person harm. It's not that I want control over their life or their freaking soul or whatever. But in my supreme selfishness and unconsciousness and my previous addiction to validation, here's this amazing opportunity to get it because of these dynamics that I've been speaking about. So you are in the breakup situation, again, initiated by them or by you, kind of doesn't matter. And the validation demon whispers into your unconscious. You don't hear it as a conscious thought, at least not, I didn't. Whispers to you, here's an opportunity to really get your fix of validation. Because when you reach out to this person, you are going to, there's a good chance that you're going to feel them wanting you like never before. Of course, there's always the risk. And I've had this experience, and I guess I can't think of specific examples, but I definitely had this experience where I believe I've done that unconsciously, and then what I've got back is not the validation, but actually that person's boundary. They're doing a good job of keeping that boundary of being emotionally distant, which is the appropriate thing to do in these circumstances, especially with an unconscious fucker like I was. And I felt that, let's say, coldness from them. Oh, and that's painful, man. That's a extremely painful. So it's a high risk gamble, I guess. And again, this is all unconscious, man. This is all unconscious, but it's a high risk gamble of whether you feel them wanting you, or you're going to feel them really not wanting you, and not only are you not going to get your validation fix, you're going to get like an existential gut punch in your insecure balls. A gut punch in the balls. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think those, speaking for myself and most of the situations that I've seen, that's what's going on. I guess what I've also seen, and I don't think I've done this, I've not really needed to, but where it's divorce and there's like legal ramifications, I have seen what I think is a man post breakup being extremely pleasant, almost like too nice and loving for the optics of it, because it makes a better case for the divorce coming up and things like that. So there's always that. But nonetheless, it's always unhelpful. So the takeaway then is, if you are in a breakup situation, one, boundaries, 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 right? And in all directions. So boundaries, if you are vulnerable to having the part of your heart that is still holding out, that is still hopeful, that is really vulnerable, that is really wanting connection with somebody right now because this is such a painful time, the boundary is in making sure that that doesn't get tapped into. And so being very clear about contact with the ex, and then if necessary, and unfortunately I think this is often more necessary than not, and that is to make it impossible for that person to contact you, specifically by blocking these things. Phones, of which I'm staring into right now, they are a blessing and a curse, mostly a curse, honestly. Not least of all because it allows people to just access your consciousness whenever the fuck they want, right? And this is why, personally, I have a lot of boundaries with my phone, permanently on silent, apart from when there's a potential for an emergency thing, stuff like that. I turn it off, I put it away, I leave it in the car when I go out, things like this. The problem with phones in that sense then is that it's like, imagine if you're constantly here, like if you are constantly available to your phone, people are constantly available to you. You are constantly available to people, right? So if you're one of these, which is 99% of people out there, where you're just have this symbiotic relationship 24/7 with your phone. That means that it's like if you take the phone out of it, but keep the dynamic there, it's like you could be walking along the beach and a voice will come into your ear and go, hey, I just want to let you know that it's like, what the fuck? Imagine that. Imagine people could just speak into your mind like you get a voice in your head. Imagine people can access you. Like, you don't need to imagine it. They can. And it's via your phone. So blocking people is a very powerful thing where possible. In breakups where there's kids involved and logistics and stuff like that, it's not always possible. But there's a case to be made for having two phones and blocking them on one phone and giving them the number to another phone. That's a real thing. And yeah, I've lost my train of thought. But what was I going to say? Yes, just blocking people, making sure that they can't. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Is that one of the benefits of that, or the primary benefit, is that it provides safety to your nervous system. Most people are in such a state of fight or flight that they don't even know that they're in it. And I speak from personal experience on that one. And so they don't even realize that the fact that that phone could beep beep at any minute and it could be him. You're on edge and you don't even know you're on edge. And the moment you block that person, you feel something relax in your nervous system. So that boundary is really important. The boundary also might need to go in the other way for you. Maybe you're the one who is in danger of reaching out, of making that connection, and doing so unconsciously and selfishly because you're not really considerate of how that person feels. And if you know that you might do that, you might have to stop yourself by blocking them, right? So it means you've got to unblock them in order to contact them. But of course, that would imply that you at least had the presence of mind in a moment to know that you needed to set that boundary with yourself, right? So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Take care of your nervous system. Be considerate of this other person's nervous system as well. And honestly, I think that applies whether they broke up with you, you broke up with them, whether everyone in your life is telling you that they're the bad guy and you're the innocent person, you're the empath who never did nothing wrong and they just treated you terribly. And even if you believe that version of things, which is highly unlikely to be absolutely true, like 100% like that, even if that's the case, we have to be considerate of the other person's nervous system as well, if we can afford to do that. And by afford, what I mean is if we are sufficiently self-caring enough that we have an overflow of self-love, that we can start to convert some of that into compassion for those around us, having been compassionate with ourselves first, then we absolutely should do that because it's the highest way of navigating things. And yeah, so I'll leave it there. But I've definitely had this experience of in a breakup and then making, some of it has been an in-person thing where I'm in this person's presence. We've been broken up for however long, and I am energetically putting the feelers out and creating a certain connection with them through my body. You might say through my body language, through my tone, all that stuff. I would say energetically, because I think it is way more subtle than that. And I've definitely done that too. Why? Again, for all the reasons. And many a time, I have to admit, has been for that validation addiction, which again, I was unconscious to at that time. So yeah, very common. We must, if we can, forgive people for they know not what they do. and more than anything, keep ourselves safe with those boundaries. And yeah, talking of oceans and walking on the beach, I've dropped a hint of where I'm at today. Here's my view today. Not bad. Not bad at all. Home sweet home.